Hello, my name is Jacqueline Morris, and today I'm going to be talking about non-governmental organizations and their role in disaster relief. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a senior at Florida State. I'll be graduating in August with a degree in international affairs and political science. I added a little game of two truths and a lie. Unfortunately, I do not have two Dalmatians as pets. Today we are going to be learning about NGOs. We're going to start by breaking down the meaning and purpose of an NGO. Then we will analyze the different types of NGOs that exist and how they are used in times of disaster. Today I will be using Hurricane Katrina as an example. And finally, we will compare the actions and capabilities of NGOs to that of government-run organizations. And I'm going to be using FEMA as an example. Let's dive in. What is an NGO? NGO stands for non-governmental organization, and what that means is that these organizations have no ties to local, state, or federal government. These organizations are run by private citizens and can sometimes be given financial support or in-kind contributions from the government. In-kind contributions are donations outside of monetary ones, such as supplies or resources needed for a disaster. The majority of funding, though, comes from fundraisers put on by the NGOs themselves. Non-governmental and volunteer agencies help state, tribal, local, and federal government in providing shelter, food, water, medical aid, and various other support services to areas affected by disaster. Now, what do NGOs stand for? In our text, Introduction to Emergency Management, the authors highlight four distinct characteristics of NGOs. First, they value their net neutrality and independence. Second, they have a decentralized organizational structure. Third, they are highly committed. And fourth, they are highly practice-oriented. Now, these qualities separate NGOs from government-based disaster organizations. In some communities, NGOs are even given distinct roles within emergency operations plans because they can provide care, shelter, psychological counseling, and more specialized aid. Now, with Hurricane Katrina, I'm going to use two examples from our text. The first is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. The second is the Early Childhood Institute at Mississippi State and Save the Children. The size and amount of destruction at Katrina was massive, and government programs were overwhelmed by the extraordinary demand for assistance. NGOs and private sector organizations provided much needed shelters, food, medicine, and temporary housing for those affected. Now, with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there were over 5,000 children displaced and separated from their families, and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children successfully reunited all of them with their families. After Katrina, Chevron partnered with two NGOs, the Early Childhood Institute at Mississippi State University and Save the Children, in order to resupply childhood care centers across 3 Mississippi coastal counties. Now, NGOs versus government relief. So an NGO has no reliance on government approval. Fundraising is created within the NGO. It's not needed from outside relief, and provides financial support for specific tasks, and many NGOs are highly specialized to handle specific aid in a disaster. Now we compare that to something like FEMA. FEMA cannot be deployed without declaration of a state emergency by the governor of that state, relies on federal budget for funding, and is created for mass disaster relief as opposed to specialized relief. And the amount of bodies alone involved in aid from NGOs make it possible for more people to be reached and helped in a smaller amount of time. Unlike government relief, NGOs can also be international organizations, which means that they can help outside of their home country or state or county even. Fundraising created by NGOs helps immensely. The monetary contributions do a better job at aiding affected populations because they can address their specific needs as opposed to a blanket operation, such as government relief aid. The limitations put on government organizations can prevent them from being as effective as an NGO in the time of disaster. So that is my presentation. I hope you all have a better understanding as to what NGOs are and how they operate during disasters and how they compare to government relief. Thank you.